The golden rule for productivity advice is for every minute you spend on it, how much time do you make back? Because if you don't make that minute back and then some, you're not accomplishing anything with this productivity advice. The more your job involves strategy and intention and guiding the intentions of others, the more you need to wander. What is this constant desire for stimulation that we have? How does that get in the way of how well we can focus throughout the day? Why would making yourself bored or just settling your mind for a little bit produce more plans and ideas and a greater attention span?
Writing your goals down makes you way more likely to actually achieve them. Comment the one thing you're going to implement from this episode, and I'll not only read through them, I'll make sure I give you some tips on how we can help. You're watching Contractor Evolution, the podcast by Breakthrough Academy, where we systemize contracting businesses for growth. Keep watching to learn how the world's top contractors scale their companies, build killer teams, and make more while working less. Chris Bailey, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Fellow Canadian Danny, how are you?
Oh, yeah there, bud. We're real good.
Oh, buddy. How many Canadians do you get here on the pod? Do you get the odd one? Or
we get the odd one, especially for our members, but we don't get, I don't get as many as probably we should. So it was nice to have a little brother from the same country in this little world here. So
yeah,
welcome.
Here we are, side by each on the riverside.
Living across the country.
Yeah.
Today, I wanted to get into all things focus, how to allocate our energy and our time. Really what it comes down to is a bunch of us entrepreneurs are super ADD and we all need help doing a better job of focusing. We got lots of stuff to get done. As I'm sure you know, you are one yourself. You're the author of a book called Intentional. You've done a lot of work on the brain to understand it. You've done a lot of work on your own brain, played around with it, which I really want to get into. Yeah, you're a scientist. And so I look forward to this. I look forward to seeing what we can learn from all this because like, Lord knows I need some help. So if nothing else,
I'm excited to help you and everybody out.
All right. So let's just start with like the idea of distractions in general. Like why are we addicted to distractions? Like what is it about a distraction that causes us to get, I guess it's a dopamine hit, you tell me, but like, why are we addicted to these things?
Yeah, it is a dopamine hit. And I think like when you look at the research, it's kind of freeing in a way where you realize that it is not all our fault that we're so distracted. There's a mechanism in our brain's prefrontal cortex, the logical center of our brain, whereby for every new and novel thing we focus on, we get that hit of dopamine. We get that rush. Mm-hmm. You know, we feel the wind in our hair and we just feel like a sense of excitement. But ultimately, it's kind of fleeting, right? It doesn't produce this lasting satisfaction. And the research actually shows that we distract ourselves from what we're doing every 40 seconds or so. So maybe if you're listening to the podcast right now, you hit play and then you put your phone in your pocket, but then 40 seconds after that, maybe you picked it up to check. I don't know. I hope you don't feel called out if you're listening to this and that's you. But this is the rhythm that our focus is in because there's that novelty bias whereby for every new and novel thing we see, we get that dopamine hit in our brain. And it does have those fascinating, honestly, neurochemical underpinnings where it's not just something that is fun to do, but there's this chemistry that happens in our brain as we engage with anything that we find distracting, usually every 40 seconds.
Now, we all blame social media and our phones for this.
Yeah.
Is it the phone driving it or is it actually our brain driving this instinctually?
It's kind of both, isn't it? When you look at where novelty comes from, a lot of it comes from social media and it doesn't come from, the best possible places usually. I remember Frances Hogan, the Facebook whistleblower from a few years back, when she was testifying against Instagram and Meta and Facebook. She essentially said that the Instagram algorithm is based on two things, bodies and comparing lifestyles, because that's what rises to the top of our feeds. It's what's most novel. It's what releases the most dopamine. And it is, it is a two-way street, right? We do engage towards these things, but we gravitate to them because of that novelty bias in the first place. The time that I really see things shifting was, do you remember I don't know how long ago this was now, but there was a time when all the social networks from Twitter, when it was Twitter and stuff, they were chronologically arranged. Do you remember that? So it was just like latest first.
Yes. Okay. I see what you're saying. Like the feed was chronologically arranged.
Yeah, it was the feed.
Yeah.
Like the Facebook was just the most recent stuff, but then they went to the algorithmic feed, and it was powered by machine learning mechanisms now, which we lump under AI, which essentially personalizes our feeds to what we care about, what our interests are, what engages us uniquely, and so. We do have these built-in mechanisms, but we also are fighting on a playing field that's honestly a little bit tilted.
Yeah.
When an algorithm can learn every little bit about us so that it can tailor the morsels of content so perfectly that it pinpoints exactly what we want in the moment, and then it keeps us hooked on TikTok or YouTube, Instagram, wherever. We are fighting an uphill battle because it's so personalized. It's not just novel; it's personalized novelty. So it is getting worse, but luckily there are still things we can do about it.
And something I always wonder about, like I think about the people that founded, say, Canada or the United States, right? They came over here, they built cabins in the middle of the winter, they survived through the most craziest conditions, and you just think like, how the hell did they figure this out? And now we have access to all the information we could ever have, but we're constantly distracted. Are we better thinkers now, or were we better thinkers pre-smartphone? Maybe it's an opinion of yours, but like, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this.
I think the environment around us is less conducive to deep thinking. But I think there is, again, a novelty connection, because before, novelty filled the gaps of our day, right? Like if, once we finish up chatting, what's the next thing we do? A lot of people with that 40-second rhythm, they pick up their phone. What did I miss? what emails just came in over this time? And so we find novelty because we're in habits of novelty. But, you mentioned however many hundreds of years ago that was. I'm horrible at history. Whether of our great...
The West Coast wasn't as long as you think it was. West Coast, we were probably built this place out about 150, 200 years ago. So
that's like as old as my house here.
There you go.
But we made our own novelty back then, right? We actually got bored.
Yeah.
And boredom is the feeling that we name when we go from a high state of stimulation down into a lower state of stimulation. It's an interesting phenomenon, but when we get bored, we look around for novelty. And when we go to just whatever's convenient, it's like, okay, here's my novelty fix. Instead of, okay, I have nothing to do right now. What should I build? Or maybe I should pick up a pen, or I guess back then a quill, and dip it in ink and write down my thoughts and write letters and really tap into one core ingredient of intentionality, which is our self-reflective capacity, our ability to look within ourselves, to choose where we want to go, to choose where we want to take our business, our life, how we want to do things differently, and so I think it's the sources of novelty. It's where novelty comes from. When it's just provided to us, we kind of feel it's like, okay, my novelty quota is reached here. But when it's not, and we have to make our own novelty, that's like when you're a kid and you have to piece together, disparate solutions to problems. You think more actively about what you're doing because you're actively piecing together novel things. I think of running a business that way too. I need time to wander to run an effective business, because that's where I actually come up with intentions. That's where that's where I become more deliberate, and that's where I can think of what novel things to combine myself instead of just what's being force fed to me, but like foie gras or something.
You just said something I want to check on. By using the cheap forms of these like 40-second hits, it's kind of like empty carbs. Is that a good way to put it? It's like we're eating a bunch of empty carbs all day long, and so we're feeling full and satisfied, but we're not filling our brains with anything of substance or anything that really helps us reflect and have a better understanding of ourselves and the world around us and how to be better planners and thinkers. Is that
we're getting the calories, but we still want to eat.
Yeah, we're still hungry.
Yeah, we don't feel full. Yeah.
So you also mentioned boredom here for a second. when I was looking into you play around with your brain.
Yeah.
Tell us about this time where you just like intentionally created boredom in your life and what came out of that.
Yeah, so I'm lucky I've got a good sized newsletter, so I can run these experiments and ask people what weird
You
stuff
can
I
swear.
can
We'll
do.
just beep you out.
Or
It's fine.
what's that?
Oh, is
Okay,
it?
you'll beep. Okay, what kind of weird I'll do? Sorry for Juan or whoever's editing this after. Um, but so one of the ones is, after seeing the research on boredom, I saw, okay, boredom is when we settle from a high level of mental stimulation down into a lower level. It's how our mind gets calmer. It's how we become more focused. Why wouldn't I want to cultivate more of this stuff? So I designed an experiment to make myself bored for an hour a day for a month. So day one, I read the iTunes terms and conditions, which are more readable than you might think. I remember waiting on hold with Air Canada's baggage claims department and things like that. But at the end of it, I realized that by coming down to a new lower altitude of stimulation, I could focus with greater ease on whatever was in front of me. My attention span grew. I found that interesting. I had more ideas for the future, more plans for the future. And so it was really this experiment that set me out on a course to uncover, okay, what is this constant desire for stimulation that we have? How does that get in the way, of how well we can focus throughout the day? Why would making yourself bored or just settling your mind for a little bit produce more plans and ideas and a greater attention span? And it led to a lot of curious research, which was in the hyperfocus book, which is very connected with the intentional book. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin almost, where, we need attention to devote to what we do. We need to cultivate that ingredient, but we need intention behind what we do, so we're focusing on the right thing in the first place.
So if I want to get myself to be real bored so that I can have better ideas, and this is a practice I might want to put into my life. How
is it?
I don't know. I'm just wondering. I'm like, is this something I want to be like, as an entrepreneur? I don't remember what boredom is anymore, right? If I'm honest, when I was a kid, I remember being bored. Do you remember sitting in your room just being like, oh my God, there's nothing to do? You remember that? Yeah, dude, I remember that. And like, but then somewhere along the way, between having kids and starting a business and doing all the things that I do, well, especially the phone, I actually don't remember the last time I was ever bored. I don't remember. And so should I be doing this? And if I should, how often? And what would I'm just wondering, because I'm like, it would be hard for me to do, but I'm open to it because I realize it's a missing part of who I am. I don't remember what boredom even is. I used to hate it.
Yeah, it is very uncomfortable. So you do have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I think actually is one of the best skills that you could possibly have. Running towards the ugly things that you don't want to do, the difficult conversations that you don't want to have, the difficult habits that you don't want to do. Running towards those, I actually keep a resistance list. So anything I'm resisting, I put on the resistance list, and I do one of those every single day. It's like resistance training, and it changes your relationship with aversion because you realize nothing is as ugly as you're making it out to be in your head. But I don't like the idea of boredom is very aversive, right? Aversive things lead us to procrastinate on. So a lot of people won't want to do it. But what I would suggest is just do what you can to let your mind wander. So to bring it back to this idea of having goals, becoming more intentional, intentionality being what lives at the core of productivity. I really believe that after looking at these ideas for the last over a decade now, that what lives at the heart of productivity is becoming more intentional. When our mind is wandering, we think about the future around 48% of the time that our mind is wandering. So, you think you're taking a shower and then your mind isn't really in the shower though. It's thinking, okay, what am I going to pick up on the way back from work? Or I really have to call this person. I need to make a mental note to do, or no, this is the solution to that problem. I should really get in touch with. And so we have all these ideas that rise to the surface of our mind. In the shower, all these intentions, because we're so future oriented. And we actually think about our goals 14 times as often when our mind is wandering versus when we're focused on something. And I don't find stats that motivating, right? It's human nature to find stories more motivating than stats, but you can have literally as a business owner, I know there's a lot of business owners that listen, a $10 million walk, right? You're stuck on a problem. You say, I just need to get some fresh air and just walk around the block a few times or whatever. I do this every single day. Once or twice every single day, I go for a 45-minute walk. And I listen to classical music, and it just that gets me thinking. And I have a notepad and a pen in my pocket, and I always come back with something. I never leave without coming back with something. And it just doesn't happen. And so you think, okay, when you have a walk that's worth $10 million or $1 million, however much, what could be more valuable than that in your day? Mm-hmm. And so that is the power of wander. That's the power of intentionality, right? So productivity is great. Focus is great. But we need to be productive and focus on the right things in the first place. And so much of that, so there's the boredom aspect, but there's also the lowering the level of mental stimulation in your mind aspect through something as simple as a walk.
And you're reframing it probably in the right way. I think using the word boredom probably isn't the right thing. It's just to give yourself space with nothing scheduled, with nothing going on, and getting out of your regular environment. My business partner is great at this. I always, whenever we do our strategic planning or our quarterly reviews, that we'll start literally with what you're talking about. We'll be up in Whistler, and we'll go for a walk for like 3 to 4 hours, like a mini hike. And we talk, and we just banter back and forth, and the agenda's pretty loose. And it starts the whole weekend of what we're about to get into and gets us kind of moving in our brains in the right direction. Because you're right, like otherwise we're just in the like all the things we got going on this week and all the different little, and we're not thinking outside of that little box we've created for ourselves. Question
it's gonna, so just to add onto that, it's gonna feel like the wrong thing to do in the moment, and you'll probably feel guilty,
right?
But it's the best thing that you can do when you have so much going on that you can't even identify what's important. That's a sign you need to step back.
You're an entrepreneur yourself. Like what is a healthy amount of that in a week?
Of wandering?
Yeah, just wandering, free space, exploring.
So I actually find that as I scale up in my business, that I need to wander more, not less. And this, it's kind of an interesting thing because I would have thought that I would get to a place where I have way more and I do have quite a few meetings and stuff like that. But often, so much of my job is designing a set of processes where I don't have to be intimately involved with the day-to-day things, and I can just come and do whatever I can uniquely do well. In that case, communicating ideas, writing about ideas, giving speeches about these ideas. So it's very much the idea level stuff, and the execution level stuff can be delegated. And increasingly, it's kind of different layers of intentionality where we have our own intentions that we need to guide. We have the intentions, goals, in other words, of our team that we need to provide and guide them with. And now we have, we're entering into an era where we have digital agents, AI-powered agents that will eventually, like it or not, will be on your team. I think people who do more physical work are more insulated from that. But it's just a matter of time until, an AI agent does your scheduling, does the administration donkey work.
It's all on its way right now. I was at these roofing trade shows. It's like AI is everywhere. It's coming in.
Yeah. And so we need to manage not only our own intentions, but also the intentions of a team and AI. And I find that in that case, our role, I have kind of a theory, and I'm starting to write about this a little bit more, where we're moving from, a predominantly knowledge work-based economy to a guidance economy, where our job will be as a maestro, as a conductor. So we're moving from, playing an instrument in the orchestra to being the conductor that decides on the direction of things. We're guiding people, we're guiding systems, we're guiding ourselves. And so that in that case, wandering needs to happen more often. I probably wander 2 to 3 hours every day, both with the walks, with just kind of, it looks almost like dawdling, but that's where I do my best work.
Now, some people are going to listen to this and they're going to say, dude, I work hard every day. This is how I get stuff done. This is how I built
Yeah.
success. You also played with the opposite side of this. You went and worked 90 hours a week and just totally burned yourself out, but you did it on purpose, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that? What is the threshold of where hard work pays off versus just becomes a waste of time?
Yeah. So, and by the way, I should say, shout out for the hard workers. Working smart is and strategic and intentionally. That's fantastic, but you do need to work hard too, So I think they're kind of two sides of the same coin. I think working smarter when we're guiding intelligent systems is getting to be more important than it used to be. So maybe that's tilting it a little bit towards the working smart side, but I don't think working smart is any substitute for working harder. But yeah, and that was something that I found in that experiment. So for 1 month, I worked 90 hours one week, then 20 hours the next, then 90, then 20, to see the effect that working these insane hours, the 90 hours weeks, had on my productivity. Then the more, luxurious 20-hour weeks where I honestly felt quite guilty working so little, because it's like business isn't getting done, work isn't getting done here. But it was interesting that the things that I found. So one phenomenon that was very much true in the 90-hour weeks. Are you familiar with Parkinson's law? Have you heard of this law before?
No, I know Parkinson's disease. So this is, it's probably not the same.
No, most definitely different. So it was named after Norfolk Parkinson, where it was a law that he coined. I forget where essentially our work tends to expand to fit how much time we have available for its completion.
Right.
And so we have, if you look at the actual constraints for focus, we can focus for about 4 to 4.5 hours every day. And that's our capacity for daily focus. We can do kind of other administration things the rest of the time, that sort of stuff. But in terms of hyper-focused, deep work, we have about 4 hours. The rest of the time, our mind or our work tends to expand to fit the amount of time we have available for its completion. So we find ourselves busier, but less productive in that
I do it all the time.
Our busyness doesn't lead us to accomplish anything. So I think in a lot of cases, the busyness that we have can be no different from an active form of laziness when it doesn't lead us to accomplish something of importance. And that's what I found in the 90-hour weeks. My work was expanding. I was doing more busy work. I felt more productive because we so often look to how busy we are to measure our productivity, but productivity is how much we accomplish. What's different because we lived or worked a day of our life. So I felt more productive, but when I looked at the actual logs of the experiment, I found that and it was a shock to me, only a little bit more productive in terms of how much I accomplished in the 90-hour weeks than in the 20-hour weeks. So there was the busyness factor, there was the tiredness factor, the exhaustion factor, the Parkinson's law factor, but also the factor that I had no choice but to become more intentional in the 20-hour weeks. So it's kind of like if somebody said to you, and it's Monday, hey, you want an all expenses paid trip to Paris or something, but it leaves Wednesday morning. Most of us would probably find a way to do our week's worth of work in the Monday and Tuesday. We would be more intentional. There'd be less busy work. We would delegate things that we needed to. So we need to be strategic. We need to be intentional. But there's also the flip side where busyness does not equal productivity. Just because we're busier doesn't mean we're accomplishing more, especially when we have a big working container where our work's just expanding to fit it. Sorry, that was a long answer, but they had me reminiscent about that experiment.
Well, it's good. And you're creating a visual in my head while you're talking. It's like I'm seeing this calendar in my head, which is my calendar. And I'm seeing like all the things that are currently in it. And man, it's a lot. There's like meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And I'm putting in little things in between all that. And what you're kind of talking to me about is like, Danny, like force that into a much smaller space and don't allow anything else outside of that. And then block like think space time, which I know the concept of it, But the reality of it is so hard because that think space time that I usually put on my Fridays, it often gets booked in with another freaking meeting. So it's like, how do we fight this? Like, where have you seen success in this? What's the reality of this, right?
Honestly, block off the time. Off the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Book yourself before you get booked. Because if you're going from meeting to meeting to meeting, how do you know if they're the right meetings? Right. How do you know they're the meetings that fit with your strategy? How do you know they're actually growing your business or sustaining your business or leading to different outcomes? This is the thing that I found researching intention in general is we need to not only be intentional, but we need to reflect on how we're being intentional, right? We need a layer on top of our actions, which is this reflection mechanism, right? So if you're going from meeting to meeting, let's use an extreme example. Have an extreme manager's schedule every hour of the week is meetings, right? But you might, let's say you get sick one afternoon and then you're lying on the couch, maybe bored even, and then your mind gets wandering and you think, why was that scheduled for today? Did I even need to be there? I'm sure some work got done without me. Or why are we still doing this check-in every single week when the project is well on its track, the one tomorrow and the one after that? Do I need to be at this? So you need that reflective layer. And so there is, a point of diminishing returns, I should say.
Sure.
So the golden rule for productivity advice is for every minute you spend on it, how much time do you make back? Right? Because if you don't make that minute back and then some, you're not accomplishing anything with this productivity advice. But wandering, for me, up to a period of 2 to 3 hours a day, I would say, maybe even 4, is productive. That 4-hour mark is my point of diminishing returns. Now, I do, mostly thought work. I do a lot of research. It's very reflection intensive. It's less, having to hammer 1,000 nails into something that just takes time. And so, but the more your job involves strategy and intention and guiding the intentions of others, the more you need to wander, even though it won't be your impulse. It's what the science shows. You'll make your time back.
Yeah. I don't want to beat this thing to death. I'll give you one other thing because I struggle with this so much, dude. Even when I'm trying to be intentional, I'll give you some examples. Even when I'm trying to be intentional and actually just have some good family time, I'll put on a movie for the kids and then I'll go and make popcorn and then I'll come back to the movie and then I'll go get them some snacks. And then I just can't sit still and watch the movie. I can't be present. I live in the future, and you said live in the future 48% of the time. I just wrote that down. Whether it's true or not, it gives me a range. How do we be more present? Because I can block off that time and go for a walk, but the reality is I'm probably going to get anxious or whatever, and I'm going to start doing something. How do people who struggle with that? Because as an entrepreneur, I live in the future. I just always am. Yeah. And it's great, but it's a bit too much. It's a bit too much. Yeah. It's a bit unhealthy. How do I bring more presence?
Well, better than living in the past, I'd say.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second. I've got a thought on that, but let's get to that one after. I personally, I would love to know, and I know a lot of our listeners are the same. They live in the future all day long, and they just want a little more presence.
It does go back to that idea of mental stimulation. So when you get into a focus cycle of focusing on a new thing every 40 seconds, and that is the rhythm, by the way. When I encountered that stat, I should say, I didn't really believe it. So I flew out to meet Gloria Mark, who conducted that study. She works at Microsoft Research, and she trained cameras on people as they worked. And she found that they didn't just switch between windows every 40 seconds. They switched between different projects they were working on. And when their phone was nearby, they switched focus every 35 seconds. And so this is the rhythm of the mind. And because of this, we're flying at a very high altitude of stimulation all the time, right? We're constantly looking for the next hit. And so when we sit down on the couch after making the popcorn and we're there to focus on an incredible movie, a nice, family memory that we're making, our mind is still in that 40-second rhythm. And so if we're going to break that 40-second rhythm, we have to break it during the day, usually first thing in the morning. I like to start with the morning with this, where, slow mornings in my view, lead to more deliberate days because we don't fall into this pattern of dealing with a new thing every 40 seconds. And it can look something as simple as, what I do when I wake up, my phone is in a different room entirely. I don't connect to the internet until 8 a.m. I have my watch in case anybody needs to call or something, but they usually don't before 8 a.m. And that's the time where I really choose what I want to get out of that day. I'll set 3 intentions for that day for work and for home. I'll think, what 3 things will I want to have accomplished by the time this day is done? And so starting the day on a more deliberate note and making an effort to lower that stimulation level over time, like by taming distractions that are unnecessary, even something as simple as turning your phone on grayscale mode, which you can ask your smart assistant on the device to do, to taming distractions ahead of time. Freedom is one of my favorite apps, which is a distractions blocker on the computer. If I'm finding that I'm craving a lot of distraction, I'll turn that on so I can do actual important work, because you can choose what websites you block for yourself. In my case, it's usually just Reddit and news and stuff like that. Can't access it. You have to restart your computer if you want to access the websites that you deem distracting. So there's a whole kind of collection of strategies that can lower that stimulation level down and get you out of that cycle of refocusing on a new thing every 40 seconds so that you can actually be more present with what you're doing and whomever it is that you're with. So it's a bit of it's a complicated answer because there's a lot of different things that get you to that same result of a lower stimulation level.
It is. And when I read about your stuff, I was like, there's tons of tactics. And I think, people always talked about tactics, which I think is important. I think if people want to, they can chat GPT it. They'll get the tactics. There was one thing though you just said that I think is good, is like you're just talking about like the morning routine, not just being about a good healthy morning routine. It's actually because you're training your brain to go through the rest of the day in that same rhythm. Which maybe I never thought about it that way. I should have, but it's like, I get it. It's like if I start with a busy, crazy morning, my whole crazy day is going to continue on. But if I start with a little more calm, peaceful, which sometimes I do a great job of, a lot of times I don't, right? But when I do, my day is different. It's like 15 minutes of a little workout, make a little coffee for my wife. Actually, I usually like to throw in a little morning music with Amazon. It's always like, Amazon, make some morning music for me. And we have a better day. But the days where it's like, wake up, we got to get the kids to school. It's like, I got a meeting at 7:30. The whole day is it just continues on that way. So that's my takeaway from it anyways, is just start your day right. Not just so that you can be more intentional in the morning, but that you're setting a theme for the rest of your day and ultimately the way you run your life. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a random
one bone to pick with productivity advice.
Yeah.
Is the wake up early thing. So
pick it.
There's all this.
Tell me about it.
Okay. Are you an early riser or no?
I've become one because of my kids.
Yeah. We're not at the kid stage yet. We're about to enter into it, but I'm enjoying, I'm a night owl at heart. I do my best work at night. I write better at night, all this stuff. And there's all this advice, the early bird gets the worm, wake up at 5 a.m., make your bed or whatever. But the actual research on it, when you look at the research, it shows that there's no difference in somebody's socioeconomic standing dependent on what time they wake up. So people who wake up at 5 a.m. are just as successful as people who wake up at 9 a.m. It really is how deliberate we are after we wake up that makes the biggest difference with our productivity, with our success level. And this is so true for and emblematic of a lot of productivity advice out there. A lot of productivity advice sounds good. It sounds like it should work.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to write down on the page. But then you look at the research behind it and you think, where the hell did this come from? It sounds good, but why did they write this?
Can I give you one actually that I've discovered that maybe it's just because I'm almost 40 and I'm starting to just live a little bit of a different life. I've been having naps, and man, has it been a game changer. Now I'm not just having naps because I just want to have naps. I'm having naps because I'm trying to focus on something and I'm tired. And I pushed myself a little too hard. Maybe I didn't sleep enough, didn't sleep right. Maybe I worked too much the night before, whatever it was. I didn't do the sleep thing properly. it up. And instead of trying to fight through the entire day or even sometimes week, just pounding, I've started to say, Danny, you need an hour and a half nap. And it's about that. It's not 5 hours. It's like an hour and a half. And I can wake up and I can come back at that same task way more fresh. Any just comments on that? Thoughts? I don't know. It saved me. Like it saved me from having like 7 days of tiredness. Now I'll have 4 hours of tiredness followed by a nap, and then I can go on with my whole week without feeling behind on my sleep.
Well, it's funny because when we're working on a sleep deficit, we actually rate our productivity as being higher than it is. Mm-hmm. And I find that very interesting because it's kind of like we're drunk in a way where we're less aware of what we're doing.
Dude, I totally
because we have less energy to reflect on it. And so we course correct less often. We have less impulse control. We have less regulation capability. We have less of a focus mechanism, which draws from the same reservoir of energy as how we regulate ourselves. And so we need that sleep desperately. If you do strategic work, now I should say sometimes a lack of sleep when you are doing creative work can actually be beneficial. Because your mind is less inhibited and it wanders more. So it's horrible when you want to do focused work or you want to pay attention to things and become engaged with things. And this is, I don't know if I've shared this advice with anyone before, but it's something that I personally do. And I don't give this advice because it's horrible health advice. But sometimes when I want to have a really creative day, when I'm really stuck on something, when something is very kind of cloudy to me, or I need to look at a problem differently, I'll deliberately get 4 hours of sleep. 5 hours of sleep, 4.5. And what that does is my mind wanders more. I can't really focus on much. I have less of an ability to regulate myself, but I don't hold back with regard to the thoughts that I generate because they're more free flowing. And the similar thing is true with our daily patterns in general, where we all have different, I call it our biological prime time, these different hours of the day when we're wired to perform better, when our energy is highest. But when our energy is the lowest, we're the most creative. It's our creative prime time. And so a nap can be incredible for that. It pieces together ideas. It brings us more energy. That said, when I do that rule, I should also say that I think for every hour of sleep we miss out on, below what we need, I think we lose way more than that in productivity. So it's, I think naps can be beneficial for that reason too.
What a thought here. And I don't know where this fits in our framing, but I just have a personal question. Yeah. We talked a bit about living in the future, living in the present. You said, well, it's better than living in the past. Yeah. Are we generally wired a certain way? Like I've had this theory for a long time that there are 6 types of people. And so the 3 main archetypes are people that live in the past, people that live in the present, and people that live in the future. And then the sub-archetypes of each one of those is people that see that as in a negative light or in a positive light. And so you've got people who they make decisions about their whole life and how they perceive the whole world based on their living in the past in a negative light or living in the past in a positive light. And the same is true for present, and the same is true for future. This is just Danny Kerr's weird theory of humans. But what it makes me understand is when I'm talking to someone and they're always talking back to me about what they're excited about or what they're fearful of or what motivates them, I'm trying to understand, do you live in the past, present, or future? And do you see it negatively or positively? And that will help me understand how to react and talk to you so that you feel comforted or you feel guided or you feel aligned with me as I talk to you.
That's very interesting. You have like the ruminators, the monks, the present dwellers, and the dreamers, the future dwellers. You can archetype design them. A system around this. Yeah, archetypes. Yeah, I can see the names now. The research on that is actually quite interesting. And, we all do have a different predisposition for focusing on these 3 different, call them temporal destinations, time-based destinations. And I'm going to try to recall the the numbers off by hand, but there's actually been research by Jonathan Smallwood, Jonathan Schooler, where they did sampling studies about where people's mind wanders to. So obviously, when we're focused on something, we're locked in.
Yeah. And
our mind isn't wandering to one of these places.
Yep.
But what they found is that on average, we spend about 12% of the time thinking about the past, 28% of the time thinking about the present, and 48% of the time thinking about the future. And the rest of the time, we're thinking about wandering to things that aren't rooted in time. So, and we think about the future so much that researchers call this our mind's prospective bias, right? And so this is how wandering actually allows us to become more intentional. We think about our goals 14 times as much when we're wandering, and we also think about the future around half of the time that we're wandering. How can that be unproductive? We're essentially planning automatically, and our mind is going through these planning scripts. And there are habits that we can have that lead us to a different ratio of all three. So, for example, mindfulness meditation roots us to the present moment more. And actually, meditation over time leads to more future thinking and lowers the amount of past dwelling. So our thoughts become more positive over time. We essentially see more opportunities around us. So we all do have a different ratio depending on our propensity to ruminate, depending on, not to nerd out too much, but our working memory capacity, which is how much we can keep in our mind at one time. The greater our mental capacity, the more we think about the future. And meditation also increases the amount of time we think about the future. So it is quite remarkably productive. And then when we bounce between all three, we think about, we're in the shower, we're thinking about a problem we're facing in the present, but then we think about a conversation we had in the past, a meeting we're going to have in the future. We connect all three and we unearth ideas we would never have arrived at if we were hunkering down and focusing on something. This is the $1 million walk, but it's like the $1 million shower version.
So what you call wandering, I call pattern recognition. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. It's like I'm seeing all these random variables and suddenly there's a pattern in those variables and I can make sense of them and that gives me direction. And it's so hard to like describe to some people because it's not just that it's like logical from an Excel sheet that I can see the pattern. It's this random like, well, it rained on Tuesday and Donald Trump's president and this client, just called to complain about this one thing and this pattern that I saw in our financials, we need to go left. And
so I should get a face tattoo.
Yeah. But like sometimes in business, it's not just a linear map that you can just build out in an Excel sheet. You actually have to step back and look at all variables, some of them that seem very unrelated, to make a very clear, decisive decision to move forward. Now you still have to base it in data, but I have found some of the most creative and genius solutions to our organization just from having that space to think. And you're right, man. What your message this whole time has been like, look, just create some space to wander, and you will connect the dots you need to be more a productive human. I know that, and I just don't do it. Not enough.
We need space for intuition to guide us, and not just logic to guide us. And I think that is so. I've already shown I'm a nerd, but there's fascinating research behind what intuition is. So intuition, it turns out, is when information is activated in our mind. It's activated in our mind, like you were saying, but it doesn't reach a sufficient level of activation to break through our conscious barrier so that we become aware of its activation. So we're wandering in the shower and we just know we need to make a certain decision on a given day. And we do, and it's the right decision. We're out, for a walk or something, and we see somebody that just looks like they need like a hug. And so we hug them, and whatever it looks like. But intuition can work with intentions too, right? So one of the things that I like to, I like keeping a to-do list. A to-do list is just a place where we store the intentions that we're working on. It's a list of stored intentions. But when I'm working on something new, I'll rarely check the to-do list. Like when we finish up our conversation, then I'll take a little break, and then I'll, have a tea or something, and then sit down, and then it'll be time to do the next thing. And when I sit down, though, I won't look at the to-do list. I'll think, okay, what do I really feel needs to get done right now? And then I'll have a thing, and then I'll reference what I have intended to do with that to-do list. And sometimes, some urgent thing was, oh, wait, no, that needs to get done first. But more often than not, I would say, and the ratio has gone up over time, I'll choose something that was more important than anything on the list, or maybe it was like 2/3 of the way down the list, but is really the most impactful thing that I could be doing in the moment. And so this is something that I don't think we do enough of when we let, the currents, the strong currents of regular business activity guide our actions. Our job is to step back from that activity and guide it and shape it, right? And so, I find that intuitive thing sometimes is far, far more important than the logical thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that. So I've been in business for almost 20 years now, in and out of different businesses, BTA for 10 of them. My intuition is something that I'm starting to give more and more credence to. Whereas in the past, I used to say, I haven't been in business long enough. It's the first time I've ever dealt with this. I intuitively feel I should hire this person. I intuitively feel we should take on this type of project. I intuitively feel we should fire this person. Whatever it is, my intuition's telling me what decisions to make all day long. And for a long time, I kind of was like, yeah, but I also need to base this in facts here, because I can't just make these calls, especially as the business gets bigger. You feel that a bit. But what's interesting right now is the older I'm getting, the more I'm just seeing that my intuition, oh yeah, I was right. No, yeah, I should have done that 4 months ago. And it's just just start to follow your intuition. And I'm wondering, is that something that should be trusted over time with experience, or should you just trust your intuition?
It would depend on the circumstance for sure. I remember, and we were chatting about this before we hopped on the mics here. The way I first started in this productivity business, whatever you call it, I graduated from university with a few full-time job offers because I'd been productive up to that point. I had some high-scale internships and stuff like that. But the intuitive thing that I felt at the time was that I should decline all the jobs and start a blog for a year, writing about productivity and what I learned and experimenting with it. And, in Canada, we can defer our student loans. So I did that, lived off of beans and rice for a year, and just wrote about productivity. And it felt like the easiest decision in the world for me at the time. It's like, how could I not do this? It's the path of least regret, right? From the outside in, maybe it looks like the path of greatest risk, but for me is the path of least risk because it was the least regretful path. Yeah. I would have regretted not doing what became the productivity project for forever. But it was intuition that guided that completely. And I didn't have enough knowledge about this space to maybe have made an optimal decision, but I probably had enough to make a good one. So, but it would really depend. If it's a business decision, on the other hand, something more complex, you need to look at, do you have the inputs that you need to make the best possible intuitive decision in that circumstance? So remember the definition of intuition: when information is activated in our head, but can't break through into our consciousness.
Yeah, totally.
So we need the information to be in our head that we can connect in the first place to make the good decision. So if there's no raw material to work with in terms of subject matter expertise for a certain decision, then, it might
just be, be blind gut.
Yeah. It might be gut rather than intuition.
Right. And you got to learn the difference. And that's fair. That's why I asked the question, right? Because it's an interesting question. The bigger the business gets, the more complexity comes in, the more decisions actually need to be made quicker to continue moving the machine forward, right? We have 50 some odd staff on our team right now. We've got, quite a bit going on. And it's like, I can't go and do all the back end work to make some of these calls. I sometimes just have to know. And if I've been doing this for 10 years, there's certain things that I'm starting to just say, you know what, this is the right call. And it's just like, Danny, but show me the spreadsheet. It's like, no, we're doing this because you're saying you need to bring it to the conscious part of your brain. What I'm using is my experience. I'm saying because this pattern 6 times has already happened, we're going to go forward with this. And so in a way, it's like I'm learning how to trust myself to use my intuition because of what you just said. I don't want to be cavalier and just go off of gut and screw it up, which is fun to do, but you've also seen the mistakes in doing that, right? So anyways, it's a balance, and it's good we're talking about it. I don't know if there's a set solution to it. It's something I'm noticing. I need to trust my intuition more as my experience increases in business. And even though the decisions are bigger and hold more weight, I have more experience than I've ever had. It's time to like make moves. Let's go.
Yeah. And sometimes the best way to use it is just to pause. And I mostly honestly use intuition for what I work on a given day. So it's kind of like if you're listening to a playlist and it's auto playing and you think, oh, it's kind of nice, but whatever, I'm just going to pause. If you pause the music and you wait just 5 or 10 seconds, a song will occur to you to play that is more enjoyable than what you're just listening to because you let the intention arise, right? I don't think we let intentions or intuition arise enough. We're just kind of in those cycles of working on autopilot, living on autopilot, and there's not a lot of meaning or growth in that. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting subject.
Chris, I wish I could do a better job of this. I will work on this. I have been for the last couple of years, actually, for the last 3 or 4 years. I actually got a coach who helped me through a lot of this, just how to be present, how to be conscious, how to enjoy the moment, right? I've got myself into a rhythm being an entrepreneur where it was all about just go, 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 go. And it's an addiction that I think a lot of us are stuck in that as we get older, or as we just get more aware, it becomes a want to grow out of. But it is very much an addiction. It's not just hey, here's a cool tactic. Like, no, there's a dopamine drug that you're addicted to, that you found a pathway to. That's usually your business. That is going to take some time to bring back some normalcy to your life. So anyway, Chris was great. You, anything you want to, if you want to point our listeners to you, how do we find you? You just released a book called Intentional. It just came out.
Yeah.
How do we
that flew by, man?
Yeah.
That flew by.
There you go.
That 1 hour conversation felt like, I don't know,
That's
20
good.
minutes.
We were in it together.
Yeah, it's good. Maybe it's the fellow Canadian. I don't know. Yeah, my new book, it's the best book I have written. And I'm very proud of it. It's called Intentional: How to Finish What You Start. If you have things you're struggling to finish or anything like that, pick up the book. It's wherever books are sold anywhere in the world. And yeah, thanks for, my website is chrisbailey.com. I have a course on there on overcoming procrastination, but also an email list if you want to get my articles, stuff like that. Yeah. I always feel awkward promoting my stuff, but I feel this book will really help people out.
Well, what's important is like some people are like, yeah, I would like to look more into this. Like I was genuinely interested to talk to you today. I have very real questions that I think if anything else, the biggest thing I took away was I was just like, right, my morning routines matter more than I'm giving them. And I sometimes do a good job of them, but I don't weigh it out realizing like this is going to impact my whole week. I'm just kind of like, I should be more intentional this morning just so I have some space. Now I'm like, no, this is going to impact the whole day, the whole week. Give it a bit more weight. So yeah, it's good.
100%.
Everyone probably took something.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, I'll let you get back to your day.
Thanks so much.
All right, man.
Great to chat with you.
Likewise. As we all know, AI is monitoring even the micro clicks we make in these platforms these days. And YouTube has just updated its algorithm to recommend videos like this. It'll be different for everyone, but it'll know exactly what you're looking for next. So if you click here, you'll be happy that you did.